if you have ever had any kind of interest in note investing, today's episode is going to be a very good one for you. But even if you're not really familiar with note investing, maybe it's something you're not interested in because you don't know enough about it, it's still going to be a good episode for you. And maybe you know about note investing, but you don't want anything to do with it, still going to be a good episode for you. One of the things about note investing that really comes to mind and is very apparent on this episode is there's not a whole lot of marketing that you have to do. However, there is still marketing that you have to do, still marketing and sales. It's just from a little bit of a different angle. The main reason being the way that you acquire and sell notes, which we'll talk about here briefly. But today's guest is going to be Nathan Turner. Nathan is known as the Canadian Note Guy, and he's been in the real estate investing space for quite some time. 15 years over, and he's been in and out of the fix and flip industry, but now specifically focuses in note investing. And on this episode, we talk a lot about reputation management, building your brand, networking, that sort of thing. Now, there's, when you talk about networking and that sort of thing, building relationships, normally the information can kind of be a dime a dozen. But I really dive deep into the way that Nathan really builds his network because I think it's a very interesting method in which a lot of people can take away. Even if you're wholesaling, even if you're just doing rentals, or maybe you're lending or whatever it is, there's still a lot of really good takeaways that we can have here. There's some good stories that Nathan talks about. Talks about going to events and that sort of thing and the value of building relationships through events. And one of the things that I'll tell you is relationships and the network that you build is marketing. It is marketing and sales at its core because it's really just relationship building, which marketing in a sense as an umbrella is relationship building. It's making an introduction to somebody, which is advertising, of course, and then building that relationship with them through sales and through the content that you're putting out and the marketing tactics and the methods that you're doing. Obviously, it's a little bit of a roundabout way of saying it, but it still is in the concept of relationship building. So today's episode is going to be a good one. Make sure you chime in and listen really, really well. Nathan really gives some good tips and insights on building your network and relationships. So guys, make sure you enjoy. Here's my guest, Nathan Turner. Welcome back to the REI Marketing Weekly. It's your host, Josh Culler. And today I have the Canadian Note Guy on the line with us, Nathan Turner. Nathan, how you doing?
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much for having me here.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you. I think this is going to be a very interesting episode. Typically, I like to bring on different types of guests that aren't just talking about, how they're generating leads with direct mail and text blasting and PPC and all that sort of things. Those are all things that we talk about are very important as well. But I like to get a little bit of diversity when it comes to the type of people that we get on the show too, because that could open new ideas, new insights, new opportunities for you guys that are listening. So today, obviously being heavily in the note investing world, there's not a lot of marketing that you have to do in note investing, which could be music to some people's ears that are listening right now, given, like wholesaling, for example, is literally only a marketing and sales type business. So that being said, in the world of notes, we don't have a whole lot to discuss. However, there are some ways that you said a lot of, the type of marketing that you do for note investing is word of mouth. So from just a broad scope, what are some of the things that people, if they are investing in notes or maybe they're interested in investing in notes, where do they start? Like what type of marketing? Let's pretend like I'm new and I want to invest in notes, but I don't even know where to begin when it comes to marketing, the marketing side of it. Where do you start?
It's really just all about knowing people and getting to know people. So hopefully if you've just started into notes, you've come from a real estate background, hopefully you already know that it's not the same as real estate. So first things first, get into a class, somebody who can teach you how to do notes, which is not me, by the way, but get into somebody who can teach you. That helps get you introduced to the community. We're not a huge community. There's not a ton of people that do it, but it's essential that you get hooked up with people that know what they're doing and can help you navigate this, that, and the other.
Yeah. So how does a network allow you to kind of get hooked into the deals themselves from a marketing standpoint?
So, going way back, I started attending conferences back in 2009. And then I started speaking at conferences in 2015. And I can tell you, just attending conferences, getting in with the network of people, so many of my deals have just come from getting to know people. I get to be known as the Canadian Note Guy, and that helps me kind of stick out. And then on top of that, once they know who I am and they know that I'm out there buying notes, then we can start to have that conversation. as I follow through with those deals, that helps, get me a good reputation, and the word gets out. This guy's for real, and he's got money, and he's gonna do what he says he's gonna do, and that goes a long, long way. So just getting into that group, doing what you say you're gonna do, asking questions, letting people know what you're up to, that's a big, big deal.
Yeah, I mean, off of what you said, just the one word is reputation. A lot of people don't understand how impactful from a marketing and branding perspective reputation can be. And essentially, in my opinion, branding is just reputation. That's all it is. It's not just like, how you talk to somebody when you're in front of them shaking their hand, that sort of thing. It's all the entire representation of who you are and what your business is about. Right. And I think that's like something that people don't really focus on and think about a lot.
No, but it's so vitally important. And, getting out to those conferences, that's mostly where you're going to meet people that are in note business. We don't, you're not going to just find them at the local coffee shop or even at an REI meeting. You're not going to just see them here, there, and everywhere. There's specific places you can go and get into that crowd and start getting hooked up with those who are in the business.
Yeah. We'll circle back around to this in a second. But one of the things that, like, just from again, pretend like I'm a third grader and I know nothing about note investing, but it's something I'm interested in. Like we talk about, there's not really any marketing that you have to do for note investing. There's not really any sales per se that has to be done with note investing. Is that kind of accurate as well? Like,
depends a little bit on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're just looking to buy notes, there is some marketing there because you got to find the notes for sale, first of all, and find people who are selling the notes. And then depending on what you want to do, you can be a broker of notes and just be somebody who's in the middle, and it's all about just buy and sell, buy and sell, buy and sell. Or you can be somebody who just buys for your own portfolio. You're just buying to be able to have passive income coming in. So that it depends really on what you're trying to accomplish. There's always some kind of networking. There's always some kind of marketing that needs to be done at some level, at the very least. But like you say, compared to wholesaler, not quite so much, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess the question too would be like, if you go to these conferences, you're meeting people, are you intentionally trying to look for the broker to bring you a deal, or what type of connections are you looking to make essentially there?
Brokers for sure. And then just people that are there that have notes for sale or know that you're somebody who's actually going to follow through with your promise. Like if you say, look, I want to buy this, and then, you're halfway through the transaction, you say, actually, I'm going to just pass on that. That's going to hurt. And that reputation is going to get around. He sort of does stuff, and he sometimes will close on a deal. But if you can be known as the guy that's going to close, that goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that makes sense. Again, like I want to make sure that I'm thinking about it from a landscape of like, if we're leveraging, relationships and network, what essentially are we looking for? Because again, you're encouraging people to go to these conferences and make the connections. I'm thinking like, how do we get the deals, right? Like it's obviously like we want to make sure that we're connecting with the right people and that sort of thing, but we're not out there just wasting our time just going to a conference because I feel like I'm doing something. Like we're there for a reason, right? Like it's important to understand.
Yeah.
So I like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say a lot of the times it's just referrals. Let's say that somebody approaches me with a deal and says, hey, I've got this note for sale. Here's, the parameters. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I've got for sale. It may not be something that I'm interested in. For example, maybe it's a commercial deal. I don't do commercial, but I can say, you know what? Hey, my friend over here, he does. Let me introduce you guys. And then whether there's any kind of a cut for me or not, I don't expect it. To me, it's all about the referral. I want to be the guy that's known as the guy who knows somebody who's going to be able to help you sell your note.
Yeah. How are you staying in front of people like that then? Because referrals is all about people. You need to be on top of mind. So what do you do actively to do that? But, obviously you've already given the tip of going to these events and speaking and meeting people. What else do you do?
Yeah, being out there in front of people like physically is definitely very important. On top of that, really, it's pretty basic stuff. Facebook, LinkedIn, just making sure that people know who you are and what you're doing. I think that goes a long way. And then I had it just recently where somebody, even on the investor side, somebody said, hey, I just got this email from you. I was just thinking about investments. I was just thinking that maybe I needed to place some money somewhere, and then I got your email. oh, guess what? The timing just worked out perfect. And it doesn't always work that way, but regular, consistent contact, whether that's email, Facebook, something, just to show that, yes, you're still active. Yes, you're still around. Yes, you're still looking for deals, money, whatever it is.
Yeah. Being a content guy myself, that I'm interested. What type of, could you give an example of like what that email said? Like what type of email you're pushing out?
I like to do more personal emails. So almost all my emails, I'm going to tell some kind of a story, something that I experienced lately, and it made me think of this, or, relates to investing in this way or that way. For example, we did, every other year we do canning project where we make homemade salsa and canned salsa. So I did, an email out there and online on all the socials, and with a picture of all the cans of salsa that we made. And, are you prepared? Are you ready for whatever comes your way? Maybe now is the time to start thinking about how you can use your IRA cash to make better returns, something like that. But kind of told the story about how every other year we'd make these salsa jars, and we got 36 jars and blah, 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 blah. And just kind of told the story first, and then relating it back to some kind of investment.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that a lot. I mean, being obviously like when you're running email campaigns, you could get lost in the flood of other emails that all very much sound the same. So when you're personalizing it, you find that, you can normally stick through by just doing that. Do you have like a large email list, or like where are those emails coming from? Is just like connections that you've made over time and it's just one by one? Do you have some sort of a funnel built out for people to kind of go into? What does that look like?
I do have a funnel, but the vast majority come from just people that I've met.
Okay.
People that I've run into either at a conference or, a networking event in town here, something like that. Just really organic. So it's not a huge list, maybe around 3,000, which is not tiny, but it's not huge. But most of those have been personal contact.
Yeah, of course. And how frequently do you hit them?
I tend to go like twice a month. I don't want to pester anybody, but I do want to stay top of mind.
Yeah, of course. And then can we talk about the type of, you mentioned like LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm assuming that LinkedIn is that a really good channel and outlet for you to market to is LinkedIn because of the higher level connections? Is that something you leverage?
Interestingly enough, actually Facebook tends to be higher response. Yeah, which I didn't expect. I thought LinkedIn would be better.
Yeah.
But
can you talk about the marketing that you do on Facebook then? Like what type of stuff you're putting out to stay in front of people?
Anything from, my son and I just went on a hike, and here we are at the top of the mountain, down to that same email that I did with the salsa jars, and I put it's a bit of a modified version of it, but it's the same message that I'll put out there on Facebook, and I'll do it at the same time as that email, so that they're getting hit from a couple of different ways, but the same message. So that if they miss it here, then they've seen it here, and maybe they see it twice, and even better.
Yeah.
But all kinds of things. And it can be anything. I don't typically do like a GIF or something like that. It's usually something personal. Something we've done in town here, volunteer work, or something that just kind of keeps me in front of people.
Interrupting this podcast episode to tell you guys that this podcast is managed and produced by Color Media Productions. Yes, shameless plug, that's my company. However, we do this for a lot of other people as well. Most people that we work with are in the real estate investing space. So if you're listening to this podcast specifically, you probably are a real estate investor, given it's called the REI Marketing Weekly. If you're somebody that either wants to start a podcast or you have one going and it's becoming a little bit of a hassle, you're looking to transition to somebody that works a little bit better with a fluid motion in terms of you get the recordings done and then they do everything else. Well, that's what we do. We do fully managed podcasts from start to finish, video, audio, show noting, the graphics, publishing, everything that goes into it. It's a full service business that we run here in a service for you as a real estate investor if you are running a podcast. Additionally, we also do social media and YouTube management as well. So all of that being on the organic side, if you are interested in learning more about working with us and just recording content with guidance and strategy set by myself personally, and then not doing anything else after that, where we're taking care of everything from start to finish,
then make sure you go check us out at colormedia.com, CULLER media.com. Hit us up there and we can learn more about working together, hop on a phone call and see what we could do for you. Now back to the episode. Yeah. So here's what I'm gathering. So obviously a lot of the people that might listen to this podcast are wholesalers or people that are doing, direct to seller marketing. And that, like, the way that Nathan's speaking here is probably just completely foreign language to most people that are listening to this podcast, right?
Okay.
So I think that there's something interesting to kind of take away from this. Obviously, number one is reputation goes a long way. And it's not even just if you're investing in notes. Like, Nathan, we talk about this stuff if you're a wholesaler, right? Like, if you have the connections with other maybe realtors that are in your market, other wholesalers in your market, you also have to have buyers. So you got to make sure that you're making the connections with the buyers, the people that are actually going to purchase the property from you when you wholesale it or assign it. So still connections and reputation with that is highly, highly important. So I mean, you've been in this space have you been investing in notes for 15 years or were you doing something before notes?
Before notes, I was doing real estate. So I did fix and flip and then I was a landlord for a bit. So in the real estate game since 2005.
Yeah.
So close to 2 years now.
What made you kind of switch from going fix and flip into note investing? Was it kind of like a transition phase where you did a little bit of both at one point and then eventually you went into notes?
Yeah, there was a transition. When I first got into notes, to me, I looked at buying non-performing notes where people were not making payments on vacant property specifically. And the thinking back then was I wanted the property. And then I would obtain the property one way or another, whether it was through a foreclosure, a cash for keys deal, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'd obtain the property and then renovate it and then sell it on terms and create another note and then either keep or sell the note. And then the further I went along, the more I was thinking, why am I trying to get the property? It's way more work to deal with the property than it is to just deal with the paper. So it kind of took me a little while to transition and to phase into just notes. So now I'm at the point where as much as I can help it, I don't actually want to own property at all if I can manage that. And just because it's so much easier to manage, same kind of cash flow that I get with a rental, but without any of the headaches that come along with that.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I kind of want to wind down with that I want to make sure everybody kind of grasps and comprehends, because we're going to pretend that if you've made it this far into the episode, you don't know much about note investing. Maybe you know what it is, but you have a little bit of interest in the way that the marketing side works and that sort of thing. But from a comparison of like fix and flip to notes, like what exactly would you describe note investing to be? Like if I said, Nathan, what is note investing? What's the summary of that?
Yeah, the summary is I'm buying the mortgage that's attached to the real estate. So the real estate is my, backup plan. That's my collateral. That's like, if I need to, I can go after the real estate. But then the note itself is just the terms and conditions, the mortgage that are attached to the loan from that property. So it'll be, whether it was created by Bank of America, US Bank or whatever, or it's a seller finance deal where somebody owned a second property and then sold it on terms, creating a note. It can be either one of those things. And then the person who owns that mortgage or that note is looking to sell it because they would rather have cash, like a lump sum of cash today versus payments over time. Mm-hmm. And for banks, that's so they can recapitalize. For individuals, it's so they can do all kinds of different things. Maybe they want to send a kid to college. Maybe they want to renovate. Maybe they want to, go into another investment, all kinds of things. But they would rather have a lump sum today versus payment over the time. I'm the opposite. I would rather have the payments over time.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for breaking that down. I think that helps a lot of people. Helps me for sure. Like I've been around this space for quite some time. Yeah. I know what note investing is. That's probably the most simplified version of what it is explained to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, a lot of people like to complicate what it is when really in all actuality, it's kind of simple.
Pretty simple. The one biggest kind of contrast, I guess, like I mentioned, you can have the cash flow without the headaches. And the reason is because I don't own the property. So the person living in the house, the one making the payments, they own the property. So if you think from a bank's perspective, if you're at your own home and you need a new roof, you're not going to go to the bank and say, hey, Mr. Banker, I need a new roof. The bank's going to be like, good for you. Like, go to it, man. And that's the position that I'm in. I'm the bank. So I don't fix roofs. I don't replace toilets. I don't deal with tenants. I'm dealing with homeowners, and they're the ones taking care of it. So
Yeah.
that makes it sound like nice and rosy and rainbows. It's not always like that, of course. But overall, I don't own the house. The person living in the house owns the house. So that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, for sure. So final question that I'll have for you that might be an interesting one for you. Maybe you have it dialed in or not. If, actually a better way to ask this would be, with all the things that we can do in real estate, we can wholesale, we can do burst strategies, any other types of like subject to any type of creative finance, we could fix and flip, multifamily, all of it. Who would be the type of person that you would say needs to consider investing in notes? Obviously in a perfect world, we would say everybody, but then, it really, all these different business models fit different types of people.
Right.
What type of business owner do you think would be more applicable to start investing in notes and potentially look into going into that business?
That's a great question. So there's different ways that you can invest in notes. You can do it passively into a fund like mine, or you can do it actively and go out and buy notes and manage them. And then you can get kind of segmented in there. Are you looking for non-performing? Are you looking for performing? First lien mortgages, second lien mortgages? Like there's quite a bit of nuance within it. All that being said, let's say, just for argument's sake, so I like first lien performing loans. That's what I buy. So for me, I'm a full-time investor. So this is what I do all the time. For kind of your regular person, a performing first lien mortgage is a really great one if you're a business owner, if you're somebody that works a regular W-2 job to supplement your income, to use it for your IRA. This is a great way to go because it's far less maintenance, it's far less work than even being a landlord would be. And you can almost set it and forget it. It's not without some effort, but you buy a note, you collect, you've got a servicer that takes care of all kinds of different things for you. It's a really great investment for that kind of person.
Got it. That fits exactly what I was looking for. I think that makes a whole lot of sense and could definitely filter someone into it. Nathan, thank you so much for the time that you spent here with us. Brought a lot of value and a lot of clarity on what note investing is. I think the only other person that we've really had on the show a long time ago was Eddie Speed, and that's probably been like 3 or 4 years now that we've had him on the show. So I always like to, bring fresh conversation to the table. If somebody was interested in potentially connecting with you, maybe you have like some sort of a program or something that they could, chat with you about, what would be the best way to get in contact with you? And what are some things that maybe you have to offer for somebody that's listening?
So best way to get with me is through my website. It's earnestinvesting.com, and that's EAR. We're not going up against Ernest Young, but earnestinvesting.com. Things that I offer, I've got my fund. So we're taking on investors all the time. That's truly the passive way to do it, where you really don't have to think about it. You don't have to do anything. For those who are more interested in being more active, I also have an annual conference. The next one's coming up May 2nd and 3rd in Nashville. And it's no pitching, all education. It's all about networking and education. Come together with other people and get to know who's who in the business and learn some things along the way.
That's awesome. And they can learn about that event at earnestinvesting.com.
Yeah, there's a link to that to the conference's website. It's called Diversified Mortgage Expo if you want to just look at directly, but there is a link to it from my Earnest Investing website.
Okay, what we're going to do is we'll link the main website, but then I also want to have a separate link directly to that. So we'll go find that and plug that in the show notes. Yeah, perfect. That people can check that out for sure. Nashville, great area to have an event in because it's kind of center of the country. So
yeah,
I think a lot of people would be interested in that. So Nathan, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you for dropping as much wisdom on us as you have been. And I definitely look forward to having you back again soon.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. If you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the show. Do me a huge favor, if you haven't already as well, is leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, your thoughts on the show, or maybe you have potential questions or guests that you think would be a good fit for the show. Additionally, I have been putting out quite a bit of great YouTube content teaching you guys about social media, podcasts, and organic content. So just look for Josh Culler on YouTube, or I'll have that link down in the description below as well, so you can check that out. And then everything we mentioned about ways to connect with Nathan as well will be down in the description. So do check that out. Make sure you take advantage of that also. Thank you so much for joining us and listening today, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.